My name is Karen, and I am 34 years old. I found out I wasn't invited to my brother's baby shower the same way you find out you're not actually part of your own life anymore, through someone else's blurry Instagram story. Not a call, not a text, not even one of those pity invitations people send when they want to pretend they tried. Just a rooftop video with music too loud, captions too cheerful, and my family smiling like I was a detail they'd already edited out. At first, I didn't even recognize what I was looking at. A girl I went to college with, someone I hadn't spoken to in 5 years, posted a quick pan across a rooftop downtown. The skyline was bright behind them, sunlight bouncing off glass buildings, the kind of day that looks expensive. I almost swiped past it, then my brain caught on a familiar face in the corner. My brother. He stood in front of a balloon wall the size of a garage door, holding a mocktail, grinning like he'd invented fatherhood. The next slide showed my mom posing next to my sister-in-law, both of them laughing in front of a gold rack of custom onesies. Another slide, my sister-in-law opening a box labeled Baby K's First Designer Outfits. A string quartet tucked into the corner like this was a wedding, not a baby shower. A bartender shaking drinks with little handwritten menus, cocktails named after baby milestones. One of them was literally called the epidural, and I kept watching, because my mind was still trying to convince me there had to be a reason I didn't know about. Maybe it was a surprise and I was late. Maybe someone forgot to tell me. Maybe there was a second event. Maybe they assumed I couldn't make it because I lived a couple hours away. Then I saw who was there. Cousins, old family friends, neighbors, my aunt and her husband, my sister's weird friend who steals forks from restaurants. And standing near the cake like she belonged in the center of the family photo was my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend, smiling like she'd been invited on purpose. That was the moment my stomach dropped, because it wasn't an oversight. It was a choice. They didn't just exclude me, they made sure everyone else was included, even people who had no business being there, even someone who used to orbit my life and cause trouble just by existing too close to it. They were building a perfect little scene, and I wasn't part of the picture. I watched one more story and saw the caption under a photo of my sister-in-law holding her belly in front of the balloon wall. The most perfect day, surrounded by everyone who matters. I stared at that line until my eyes started to burn. Everyone who matters. I didn't feel sad at first. I felt numb, like my brain had hit a wall and didn't know what emotion to release. Then the numbness cracked and the humiliation poured in, hot and sharp. I called my mom. She picked up on the first ring, and before I even said hello, her voice switched into that overly sweet tone she uses when she knows she's about to lie. "Oh, hi, honey," she said, light and airy. "How are you?" "Why wasn't I invited?" I asked. A beat. Then she sighed like I was making things difficult. "We just thought you'd be uncomfortable at something like that." Uncomfortable? At my own brother's baby shower? I gripped my phone tighter. Everyone else seems comfortable. She didn't answer that. She didn't address it. She slid right past it like it was irrelevant. "But don't worry," she added quickly. "Your name is in the thank you card. You helped make it happen." Something about the way she said helped made my spine go cold. "Helped," I repeated. "Yes," she said, too cheerful. "You know, you always help. And this was such a special celebration. Your brother's first baby." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't even let her hear the anger building in my throat because I suddenly realized I didn't need to debate anything with her. I needed to confirm something. I opened my credit card app while she was still talking. And there it was. Balloon installations, 3D $200. Custom onesies, $1,100. Floral arrangements, $890. Venue deposit, $2,500. Catering, $3,600. Bar service, $2,100. A charge for something called baby-themed eye sculpture, $480, which sounded like a joke until I saw it was real. Every single one billed to my backup card. The backup card I gave my mom over a year ago for emergencies. The one she promised she would never use without telling me. My throat went dry. I kept my voice steady. "So you charged my card." She didn't even deny it. She went quiet for half a second, then tried to sound offended. "Karen, don't start. It was a celebration. We knew you'd understand." There it was again, not asking, assuming. I didn't tell her I could see the charges. I didn't give her the satisfaction of hearing me react. I just let her finish whatever justification she thought would work. And then I said, "I have to go." I hung up. My hands didn't shake. That was what shocked me most. I expected rage, I expected tears. What I felt was a strange, calm clarity, like something had finally snapped into focus after years of being blurry. I went online, froze the card, and filed a fraud report. When the bank asked if I recognized the merchant names, I said yes. When they asked if I authorized the transactions, I said no. When they asked if I knew who might have used the card, I told them the truth. It was family, and I didn't approve a dime. I was still sitting there when I saw the final straw. 2 hours after my call with Mom, my sister-in-law posted again, a perfect photo of her holding her belly in front of the balloon wall, gift bags stacked around her, smiling like a celebrity on a red carpet. The caption read, "Fully funded by our favorite fool." Sparkling heart emoji, clinking glasses. And she tagged me, publicly, like a joke, like a trophy, like I was supposed to laugh and accept the humiliation as the price of belonging. I didn't DM her. I didn't call my brother. I didn't ask anyone to explain. I commented under the post, "Fool's done funding?" Then I logged off. The call started an hour later. Mom first, then my brother, then private numbers, then my sister. My phone looked like it belonged to someone being hunted, and I knew exactly why they were calling. Not because they were sorry. Because the bank was reversing charges, vendors were asking questions. And for the first time in their lives, they were going to have to explain how a rooftop baby shower ended up paid for by someone they didn't even invite. That was their first mistake, thinking I'd stay quiet. Because I wasn't just pulling the card, I was pulling the plug on everything. The morning after I commented, "Fool's done funding," my phone looked like it belonged to someone being stalked. 17 missed calls, 9 voicemails, texts in rapid bursts from 3 different family group chats I usually ignored unless someone died or got engaged. Overnight, I had become the most important person in the family again, not because they missed me, not because they regretted excluding me, but because the machine they built their comfort on had finally jammed. I didn't listen to everything at once. I made coffee first, slow and deliberate, because I refused to start my day in their panic. Then I sat at my kitchen table, opened my phone, and pressed play on the first voicemail. It was my brother. No hello. No, are you okay? No, why weren't you here? Just him, mid-rant, voice tight and furious, like he was arguing with a customer service rep. "So you're really doing this over a couple party charges," he snapped. "You couldn't just call me. You had to make it this dramatic. You think freezing the card and acting like a victim makes you look good." The way he said victim made my jaw clench, like I was performing, like I was being theatrical for attention. He sounded less mad about the money and more mad that I'd disrupted his perfect event, like I'd ruined the Instagram aesthetic by refusing to quietly sponsor it and smile from the shadows. I listened to the second voicemail. "Mom!" Her voice was shaky, not from sadness, but from the realization that her setup was slipping. When Mom panics, she doesn't get emotional first. She gets strategic. She tries to talk you into doubting your own boundaries. "I just don't understand why you're doing this," she said, voice soft, like she was comforting me. "We're family. You've always helped before. It was a celebration. Your brother's first baby. We didn't think you'd mind." Didn't think I'd mind. That line played on a loop in my head because it was never about asking. It was always about assuming. They had decided I was a silent donor, a bank account with no face. They didn't invite me because, in their minds, my presence was optional. My money wasn't. Then came the text messages from my sister, the one who could type more insults per minute than anyone I'd ever met. "Okay, this is getting out of hand. You made your point. Call the bank and reverse it before someone sues. I get that you're hurt, but this is petty. Mom's crying BTW. Not one apology. Not one question about why I felt excluded. Not one acknowledgement that my sister-in-law had mocked me publicly and tagged me like I was a joke. Just panic. I turned off notifications. And then I did the thing I'd never done before. I stopped reacting emotionally and started thinking practically. I pulled out a notebook and made a list. Not a petty list, a real list. The kind you make when you realize you've been quietly underwriting an entire family's lifestyle and they've trained themselves to forget it counts. At the top, I wrote one sentence. Everything I've paid for has a name. Then I started writing. My sister's rent. 5 months. She'd promised she would pay me back when her freelance business took off. It never did. She always had a reason. A slow month, a late client, a surprise expense that somehow became my problem. My brother's temporary loan, $2,000. He called 6 months ago saying he just needed to float it until my sister-in-law's maternity leave kicked in. He never paid it back. He never mentioned it again. And I realized he hadn't meant it to be a loan. In his mind, it was a resource extraction, as natural as breathing. The apartment lease I co-signed for my sister so she could get approved faster. The way Mom had thanked me at the time like it was a sweet gesture, not a legal risk. The emergency card I gave Mom, just in case, because she swore she'd only use it if something serious happened. Apparently, a rooftop balloon wall counted as serious. I stared at the list and felt something settle in me. This wasn't revenge. This was balance. So I started pulling threads. First, my sister's lease. I called the management company, confirmed my name was still attached, and began the process to remove myself. It took paperwork and a fee, but I paid it gladly. I imagined her trying to renew her lease later, imagining her face when she realized she couldn't leverage my stability anymore. Then my brother's debt. I didn't threaten him. I didn't send a dramatic text. I forwarded the unpaid amount to a collection agency I kept on retainer for my business clients. It wasn't personal. It was business. Let him explain to my sister-in-law why a collections notice showed up in their mailbox during her pregnancy. Then Mom's car. The car I had paid off because she couldn't sleep, knowing she still owed the bank. The car that was still registered under my name because she never bothered to finalize the transfer. I didn't take the car. I didn't repo it. I simply filed the request to transfer the title back to the loan agency and flagged the registration issue so it would be corrected properly. Let her figure out why her insurance spiked and the plates got flagged. Let her feel for once what it's like when convenience disappears. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a call or a text. It was a screenshot sent by someone I barely knew, someone from my extended family who had been at the shower. It was a Facebook post. My sister-in-law had written a long passive-aggressive paragraph about entitled relatives who think money equals love and how some people will never understand family values. Underneath it, in the comments, my mother had replied, "You're absolutely right. Some people only know how to take things away." I stared at that comment until my throat tightened. They had stolen from me. They had excluded me. They had mocked me publicly. And now they were painting themselves as victims because I refused to keep funding them. I didn't comment. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself in their little echo chamber. Instead, I opened my own profile and posted one clean screenshot. My credit card statement. Every charge, every vendor, every number. No redactions, no caption, no dramatic explanation, just evidence. 10 minutes later, the group chats went quiet. That silence was louder than any apology I'd never get. But the real consequences didn't arrive online. They arrived in the mail. A few days later, I received an email from the Rooftop venue. Apparently, when the bank reversed the charges, the venue reached out to my brother and sister-in-law for alternate payment. They ignored the invoice. So the venue sent the unpaid balance to collections, and because the original payment was tied to my card, they copied me on the notice. That was the moment I realized something they hadn't fully understood yet. This wasn't just about me getting my money back. This was going to stick to their names now, not mine. Every vendor they ghosted. Every deposit they pretended didn't matter. Every contract they signed with my money and their smiles. It was all coming due, and the people who wanted to be paid didn't care about family. My brother texted again that night, tone shifting from rage to desperation. "Can we please talk? I'll pay you back. Sarah's freaking out. She's blaming me. We didn't mean for this to happen." No apology, just panic because consequences had finally found their address. Then another message popped up, the one that made my stomach twist for an entirely different reason. It was from my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend, the one who'd been at the shower. "Hey, Karen," she wrote, like we were friends. "Crazy situation. Just wanted to say you didn't deserve that. Also, are you still with him?" I stared at the screen, feeling that familiar irritation rise. She wasn't asking out of concern. She was fishing. She was hovering near the wreckage, trying to see if she could benefit from it. I blocked her without responding. Then I went back to my list and added one more line at the bottom, a sentence that felt like a promise. No more silent sponsorship. No more emergency card. No more being grateful for crumbs of inclusion. If they wanted me in their life, they would have to learn how to treat me like a person, not a payment method. And based on the way my phone kept buzzing, I knew they were about to learn something they'd avoided their entire lives. What it feels like to live without me fixing it. The silence didn't last. It never does with families like mine. Silence is only tolerable when it's serving them. The moment it starts costing them something, they scramble to fill it with noise, excuses, and pressure. 3 days after I posted the card statement, the emails started coming in. Not from my family, from vendors. The Rooftop venue was first. A polite message, professionally worded, explaining that the payment tied to the baby shower had been reversed and they were now seeking alternate payment from the event organizers. Because my card had originally been used, I was copied for visibility. Visibility. That word stuck with me. Then came the balloon company, the florist, the caterer. Each email followed the same structure. We attempted to contact your brother and sister-in-law. We have not received a response. Please advise. I didn't advise. I forwarded everything to the bank, then to my lawyer, then archived it. What mattered wasn't that the money was coming back to me. What mattered was that the debt was no longer attached to my name. It was wearing theirs now, like a coat they couldn't shrug off. That was when the tone of the family messages changed. My brother stopped yelling. He started pleading. "Karen, please," he texted late one night. "This is getting out of control. The venue sent something to collections. Sarah's losing it." I stared at the message for a long time. He still hadn't said sorry. He still hadn't acknowledged that they excluded me, that they used my card without asking, that his wife publicly mocked me and tagged me like a joke. All he saw was the mess spiraling beyond his control. Then my mom showed up, unannounced. That alone was shocking. She hadn't been to my apartment in over a year, not when I had surgery last spring, not when I moved, not when I asked her to come over just to spend time together. But now that I'd disrupted her comfort, she suddenly remembered my address. I watched her through the peephole as she buzzed my apartment 3 times, standing there with her purse clutched tight like she was bracing for impact. I didn't open the door. She texted, "I'm not leaving until we talk." I didn't respond. 20 minutes later, I heard raised voices in the hallway. The building manager politely but firmly asking her not to block the entry. I stayed silent, heart pounding, but steady. When she finally left, she sent a voicemail. Her voice cracked in that familiar way, the way that always used to pull me back in. "I never expected it to go this far," she said. "You're tearing the family apart, Karen." I deleted the voicemail, because she still didn't see what she'd done. She saw my reaction as violence, my boundary as betrayal, and I was done trying to translate reality for her. That night, I did one more thing. I sent a single email. It went to my brother, my mom, and my sister. No subject line. No explanation. Just a PDF attached. Inside it was everything. Every payment I'd made on their behalf in the last 2 years. Dates, amounts, screenshots, notes, rent support, loans, deposits, co-signed obligations, emergency transfers. It ended with a clean, unemotional total at the bottom. Total support given, unreturned, $48,970.14. Total support going forward, $0. I didn't threaten them. I didn't ask for repayment. I just showed them the truth they'd worked so hard not to see. No one replied. But 2 days later, my sister posted a photo on Instagram. She was sitting on the floor of an almost empty apartment, holding a cardboard box of takeout. The caption read, "New beginnings," with a dizzy emoji. Comments were turned off. I didn't need to ask what had happened. I had warned her when I removed myself from the lease. The landlord had given her 30 days. She'd stretched it to 60. That was the end of the line. The consequences were finally reaching places my family couldn't pretend were unrelated to me. And then something unexpected happened. My boyfriend's ex-girlfriend messaged me again. Not to gloat, not to flirt. This time her tone was careful. "I know this is awkward," she wrote, "but I want you to know I didn't realize what they'd done until after. Your sister-in-law thought it was funny. I didn't." I read it twice. I didn't reply. Because whether she knew or not didn't change the fact that she'd stood there, smiling in photos, participating in something built on my exclusion and my money. Awareness after the fact didn't earn absolution. A week later, the next shoe dropped. I received a notice from a small claims court. One of the vendors, the cake and catering company, had filed against my sister-in-law for unpaid balances. The judgment date was set. The amount wasn't massive compared to the Rooftop venue, but it was public, searchable, and humiliating. She lost. That loss mattered more than the money. It meant a legal record. It meant consequences that couldn't be smoothed over with a phone call or a guilt trip. The day after the judgment, my brother emailed me. Not a text, not a call. An email. Short, plain, miserable. "Karen, I screwed up. I know I did. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I miss you. Mom's not talking to anyone. Sarah's been depressed for weeks. I feel like we broke something that can't be fixed. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I stared at the screen for a long time. It was the first message that didn't try to minimize, justify, or redirect. No manipulation, no blame, just regret. I didn't reply. Not because it wasn't enough, but because they needed to sit with it longer. Because apology without endurance is just another performance. And I wasn't interested in performances anymore. I thought the email from my brother might change things. It didn't. What it did was shift the strategy. Once it became clear that guilt and anger weren't pulling me back into place, my family tried something else, something softer. Something that looked like reconciliation, but felt suspiciously like another attempt to reset the board without admitting what they'd actually done. The first sign came in the mail. A thin envelope, cream-colored, with my name written in my mom's careful handwriting. Inside was a thank you card. The same card she'd mentioned on the phone, the one she said my name would be in, the one that supposedly proved I'd been included in spirit, if not in person. I opened it slowly. There were 2 names written inside. My brother's. My sister-in-law's. That was it. No mine. No with love from. No afterthought. No scribbled add-on like someone realized too late they'd been caught in a lie. Just confirmation. Neat and final. They hadn't forgotten to include me in the card. They'd never planned to. I didn't tear it up. I didn't throw it away right then. I set it on the counter and stared at it for a minute, letting the disappointment settle into something quieter and more durable. Then the gifts started. A basket appeared at the front desk of my office building one afternoon, wrapped in cellophane with a lavender ribbon. My receptionist said someone had dropped it off that morning. No name, no explanation. Inside was a bottle of overpriced wine, a box of imported cookies, and a tiny pink onesie folded neatly on top. It said, "Best aunt ever." Tucked under the bow was a folded card. Let's not throw away what really matters. It was signed by my brother and his wife. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a soft pitch for reconciliation now that the bills were landing and the heat was on. I thanked my receptionist and told her to keep it or toss it. I didn't care which. I didn't take a single item home with me. That night, my mom left another voicemail. "Karen," she said, voice heavy with practiced sadness, "I know you're still angry. I know mistakes were made, but punishing everyone like this, you're better than that." There it was, the flip. She couldn't admit wrongdoing without reframing my response as cruelty. She couldn't say sorry without turning it into an indictment of my character. In her version of events, they hadn't betrayed me. I had overreacted. I blocked the number. 2 days later, my aunt called. We hadn't spoken in over a year. She said she wasn't taking sides, which is always code for, "Please make this easier for everyone else." She told me the family was falling apart and maybe I should be the bigger person and go talk to my mom. I hung up. I wasn't trying to be bigger. I was trying to be real. Then something else shifted, not privately, but publicly. A friend sent me a screenshot from a private Facebook group for local parents. Someone had posted anonymously about a difficult financial situation with a new baby and unpaid event fees that were threatening legal action. The details were vague, but the comments weren't. People recognized the shower. They'd seen the photos. They connected the dots. The replies were brutal. Someone messaged me another screenshot later that day. One of the vendors had taken my sister-in-law to small claims court over an unpaid cake and catering bill. She lost. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt validated. The next day, my brother emailed again, shorter this time. He said he didn't expect forgiveness. He said he just wanted me to know he understood how badly he'd messed up. He said Mom wasn't speaking to anyone. He said his wife had been depressed for weeks. I didn't reply. Not yet. Because the silence was doing more work than any argument ever could. A few days later, all 3 of them showed up where I least expected it. My cafe. The one I go to every Saturday morning like clockwork. The place where the barista knows my order and no one asks me for anything. I was halfway through my coffee when they walked in like they'd rehearsed it. They didn't ask if they could sit. They just did. My mom reached for my hand like we were in a movie, like all of this was leading to a tender moment. I pulled back gently and waited. They talked over each other at first. Apologies tangled with excuses. My brother admitted using the card was wrong. My mom said she should have handled things differently. My sister mostly looked annoyed, like she was there out of obligation. They kept calling it a mistake, a misunderstanding, a bad judgment call. I let them finish. Then I spoke. "It wasn't a mistake," I said calmly. "It was a choice. You chose not to invite me. You chose to use my card. You chose to mock me publicly. Everything that happened after that was just consequences. The table went quiet. My mom said she didn't want to lose me. I told her she already had, at least the version of me who kept saving everyone. My brother asked if there was any way we could go back to how things were. He said he missed me, missed us. The door is open, I told him. The bank is closed. No more co-signing. No more emergency money. No more silent funding. If they wanted me in their life, I'd show up as family, not infrastructure. They didn't like it. I could see it on their faces. They wanted the old Karen back, the one who absorbed stress and paid bills and smiled anyway. The Karen was gone. They left slowly, like they weren't sure what just happened. I finished my coffee alone, feeling lighter than I had in months. That afternoon, a birth announcement arrived in the mail. Glossy cardstock, gold foil lettering, a photo of the baby swaddled and sleeping peacefully. Beneath it, a list of names. Mine wasn't there. I tossed it in the trash without ceremony. Not because it didn't hurt, because it confirmed the truth. They weren't including me. They were testing me. And I was done being tested. The silence after the cafe meeting felt different from the ones before. It wasn't charged. It wasn't dramatic. It was hollow, like the echo left behind after something heavy finally drops and cracks the floor beneath it. For weeks, no one called. No one texted. No guilt-laced messages slid through side doors. Life settled into a rhythm that didn't revolve around waiting for someone else's emergency. I started sleeping better, working better, saving more than I ever had. The calm felt earned, and I had no intention of disturbing it. That's why I picked up the phone when Darren called. Darren was an old friend, someone I trusted without hesitation. We hadn't talked in almost a year, but when I saw his name, I answered instinctively. "Hey," he said, "this is probably none of my business, but I think you should see something." "What?" I asked, already feeling that familiar tightening in my chest. "I was scrolling Marketplace," he continued, "and I'm pretty sure your brother's wife is selling your old MacBook." That stopped me cold. "What MacBook?" I asked, even though I already knew. "The silver one," he said, "with the scratch near the trackpad. The wallpaper. I recognize it. That hiking photo of you and me. You never changed it." My stomach dropped. I'd left that laptop at my mom's house over a year ago when I upgraded. I hadn't cared what happened to it. It wasn't about the device, it was about the pattern. Darren sent the link. There it was, listed under my sister-in-law's account. Same model, same damage, same serial number, barely visible in one of the photos, matching the records I still had saved in my email. They were still extracting value from me, even in scraps. I messaged her once, not accusatory, not emotional. "Hey," I wrote, "quick question. Where did you get the MacBook you're selling?" 2 minutes later, she replied. "Oh, that," she said. "It was in some boxes from Mom's house. Figured no one wanted it." I stared at the screen. "It's mine," I replied. She left me on red. That was all I needed. I didn't argue. I didn't demand. I didn't escalate emotionally. I reported the listing as stolen property, attached the serial number, and closed the app. A few hours later, the listing disappeared. That night, my brother texted me. "Really? Over a laptop?" I didn't respond. 3 days later, my mom sent a long email about downsizing. She said she was selling the house, moving somewhere smaller, and thought I might want to come by and take anything sentimental before it was gone. I didn't reply to that either. A week passed. Then a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a small box, carefully packed. When I opened it, I found the laptop wrapped in a dish towel. No note, no apology. Just the object they'd tried to sell when they thought I wouldn't notice. But that wasn't the part that made me sit down. Inside the laptop sleeve was a folded check. $2,000. No memo. No explanation. The exact amount my brother had borrowed from me over a year ago and never repaid. I understood immediately. This wasn't an apology. It was a receipt. They weren't asking for forgiveness. They weren't offering reconciliation. They were acknowledging a debt they could no longer pretend didn't exist. I didn't cash the check right away. I let it sit on my desk for a day, just to feel the weight of what it represented. Then I deposited it without comment. No thank you. No acknowledgement. That boundary didn't need reinforcement. A few days later, I received an email from my sister-in-law. Not my brother. Not my mom. Her. She didn't minimize. She didn't deflect. She didn't ask for anything. She wrote that she finally understood. That mocking me publicly, erasing me privately, and then baiting me for help when consequences arrived wasn't just selfish, it was humiliating. She said something that stayed with me long after I closed the email. "You were never the fool," she wrote. "We were. We thought we could spend your money and still keep your respect." There was no request in her message, no invitation, no expectation, just ownership. I forwarded the email to my brother with a single line. That's how you say sorry. I didn't hear back. And I didn't need to. Because my life had already shifted into something quieter and sturdier. No surprise charges, no late night panic calls, no emergencies that somehow always landed on my shoulders. They still reached out sometimes. A birthday text, a holiday photo. I responded politely when I felt like it, briefly, without opening doors I'd already closed. I never unfroze that card. It's still in a drawer, cut cleanly in half, taped to a piece of paper. On that paper, I wrote 2 words in thick black ink. Never again. I don't know if my family will ever fully understand what they did. I don't need them to. What matters is that they finally understand what I will no longer do. And for the first time in my life, that feels like peace.